help, I have 3 weeks left until my wedding and I need to know everything that I need to know for the 3 weeks until my wedding. If I had a nickel for every time someone came to me in like a very hurried, rushed tone and needed to know everything for the last minute advice, all the stuff like crammed together into one, I'd have a lot of nickels. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Jamie Wolfer. I'm your online wedding planner. I'm here to help you plan easy, stress less, because honestly, I think wedding planning is extremely simple. Don't believe me? You should subscribe. Seriously, jump on down there and subscribe. I break it all down for you. I make it literally as streamlined as I possibly can through the interwebs to you. And I do that through a myriad of ways. One of them is through these YouTube videos. The second is through a killer detailed email list that emails you every time you're supposed to be getting stuff done. Yeah, I'm not kidding. And if you want to join, you can just join through this download right here. It's called the Ultimate Wedding Planning Checklist because yeah, I made one of those too. In addition to that, as if all that wasn't great enough, I also have an online program where I take on online clients and I walk you guys through how to plan your wedding. And what you're going to see today is an excerpt from one of those calls all about the final details. These calls are something I do once a month with all the online clients for an entire hour. So this is only a 20-minute excerpt. So the call you're about to see is all about those final details, from the most commonly forgotten items to how to organize your wedding party where they should be standing, to how to run a rehearsal without a wedding planner and without access to your ceremony space. Because believe it or not, that happens a lot. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. In today's meeting, we're going to be talking about final details, which could be like super close for some of you or really far for some of you. It's always a good thing to be aware of the final details, even if you're quite a few months in advance or a year in advance, because it kind of helps you to backtrack. So as you're working through the master plan, there is obviously that whole section of final details. Anything that you can do to check those off as soon as possible is only going to behoove you. Behoove you. That word was a lot harder to get out than I thought it was going to be. So we'll go ahead and just jump right on into it. How much time should I allow for admin/planning in the month or two just before the wedding? I'm supposed to answer that one. I don't know. How much have you gotten done? That's entirely dependent on, how much you've achieved, how well you've been tracking with the timeline, the checklist, and getting things done. If you were following things correctly, honestly, a lot. Like a lot of admin is in the last few weeks, simply because it's the final details. It's the check-in. And that's why this whole module exists, is to be able to have these conversations with your vendors to check that everyone knows the timeline, send out those final emails. So I couldn't put a time frame on it, but I would expect to spend quite a bit of time answering emails, sending out emails, double checking things in that last 6. Not quite the last 8 weeks, but once you hit the last 6, it picks up. Once you hit the last 4, it picks up even more. Last 3 to 2 is probably when you might feel it the most intensely as you're confirming numbers and details with various vendors and whatnot. What are some items that most people forget that I will need on my wedding day? For instance, I know I need pens if I have a traditional guest book and cups for the bar, but I know I'm missing some things. Okay, I have a whole 25 most commonly forgotten details and a download if you would like to get it for like a checklist. I'll read them off right now. Do not feel like you have to take notes. We have a link for it. You can download it. You can go watch the entire video, but I'm just going to read through them really quickly, okay? So that would be an emergency kit. I have a video on what my emergency kit includes, and I talk through what I think you might need and what you don't need. So don't feel totally overwhelmed by that, because honestly, most of it as a bride or as a couple, you're not going to need the level of stuff that I have. But if you have one, make sure that you're including that. Eyelash glue. Eyelash glue is water soluble, so if you cry, it will come off. Fun fact. So you might need to reapply. Otherwise, you'll have those things flapping in the wind as you are breaking it down on the dance floor. They're just going to be like moving with you. You know what I mean? A bustle video. If you have a bustle on your dress, please have someone record what it looks like to get it attached and to make sure that everyone knows, or like somebody knows how it goes. Because most of the time people be like, oh, it's okay. My mom's there. She watched it happen. She understands. She'll be able to find it. Those little buttons are clear, or the hooks are really tiny, or the things are really hard to find. And then the only person who knows how to do it is also really hard to find. So if you have a video of it and it's sent to multiple people, or it's saved on a drive somewhere that you can access from anyone's phone, trust me when I say this will streamline things astronomically, okay? Astronomically. Eat food and feed your wedding party. I was a bridesmaid in a wedding once, and I was pregnant and they did not feed us properly. And I kid you not, you guys might see the video where I talk about this. I had to walk away from the ceremony in the ceremony and go lay down on a bench because I thought I was going to pass out. My knees weren't locked. I mean, I had been doing this for a while. I was already a wedding planner when I was in this wedding, and I literally had to leave and just go lay down. And I was able to motion to the photographer, so she was able to pull in tight. and like basically take the photos up close to not show that I was gone. The couple didn't find out until later, but I was like, they got, I think, like a 30 pack of chicken nuggets for like 10 bridesmaids. So eat and feed your wedding party, please. Drink water. A lot of times you're going to be nervous and you're going to forget. In fact, I suggest hydrating several days in advance. Like, be really intentional for a week leading up to your wedding to hydrate. Get those toxins moving, get stuff out. We do not want you dragging by the time it gets to your wedding. And I know it sounds like, the drink water. Like, no, like actually drink water, please and thank you. Flats, if your shoes suck, cash and ID. You might think that you'll remember this, but if you need it for your hotel room where you're going to afterwards, marriage license, I've seen that forgotten before. Invitation suite, if you want a picture of them taken. I love invitation photos. I just love them with all the details from your wedding day, because it's like you planned out your event, you had this vibe, you had this theme in the very beginning, you had this vision, and that was captured with your invitation. So to then bring it to your wedding day and have it laid out with florals from your bouquet, or to have your wedding shoes next to it, or your rings. There's just something about that detail photo specifically that really gets me. I like that one. Overnight bag. I forgot mine. So I feel like I have to assume that other people are just as gooberous. Yep, as I am. Vendor tips, ice. Confirm with your venue that they actually have enough ice to cool beverages, not just for drinks. Transportation, be sure to know how you're getting from point A to point B. A lot of times what we'll end up saying is, hey, who has room in their car to like get us to the ceremony? Let's work that out ahead of time, shall we? It's not like leave that to the last minute. Reserved seating signs for the first 2 rows. I said this in the sign video that I posted recently. But the reason that I like reserved seating signs is less because it tells people not to sit there, and more because it almost gives everyone permission to use the 3rd row. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, only the first 2 rows are reserved. We can sit up here. If not, then people kind of tend to avoid the front, like socially awkward teenagers in a high school classroom. They'll be like, no, we can't sit up front. We're not supposed to do that, except for like the special kids, you know what I mean? Photo wrangler, someone who knows the family members, who can get them in line when their names are called or when the side of the family is called. Ideally, it's a cousin, an aunt, and uncle who knows everyone on that side in case Uncle Jim decides to wander off over to the bar. Someone knows what he looks like. Vendor overtime, vendor meals, just be aware of the vendor overtime, what that could cost in case you want to increase their time or in case it takes too long to break down, etc. This is something just to be aware of. Vendor meals, make sure that's calculated into your overall head count for your caterer. Music selection, make sure you have all of that worked out with your DJ. If you need to, we do have a killer music guide from honestly our favorite wedding DJ of all time, Griffin. He's awesome. I'm sorry, DJ Greff. That he gave to us for free. He's like, here's all my best stuff. Go for it. And it lists out all the songs that you need, because what we don't want someone running up to you and being like, what song do you want for the cake cutting? Like, we want all of that just figured out. We don't need any stressful vibes. Let's get it all handled ahead of time. Cake knife, cake server, topper, and toasting glasses. These are a very traditional thing to have. A lot of times people get them done custom. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But you need to have something to cut the cake. You don't necessarily have to have a topper, but if you want a topper, you need to bring it. That kind of detail. Guest book pens, self-explanatory. List of personal or DIY items. Anything that you are bringing that needs to be set up and torn down, we need some sort of master list. Someone needs a master list to refer to make sure all of that also gets put back in boxes to then go back home with you. Point person. This can obviously be a wedding planner or wedding coordinator. Big fan of those. But if you're in this course, then probably you are thinking or not having one, because I understand balling on a budget. So who are we going to have that's paying attention to your timeline? Who are we going to have that's going to kind of help to moderate and encourage things to move along if need be? It could be bridesmaid, a member of the wedding party. It could be your photographer that you're talking to, your DJ that you're speaking with. Photographer and DJ tend to be the 2 vendors that run the timeline if there isn't a wedding planner present. So they're the person that I would get that timeline to and have that conversation with, but maybe having someone on your end of things would not be a bad idea either. And then a teardown crew, because that's the most overlooked part of the wedding. And then don't forget to pause and breathe and observe, repeat, because you worked really hard to get to this day and you honestly deserve it. So that's the most commonly forgotten things. It's just a cool, casual 25 things. But my hope is, as I'm reading through some of those, you might be like, oh, done. Half of those already taken care of, not a big deal. So all I have to do is focus on like 12 things. And it could be something like pens. Like, it could be really minute. So don't stress out. Most people do not forget all of those things. Most people only forget a handful of them. And your wedding will go on without a handful of those things. So, food for that. Do I actually need wedding insurance? Technically saying yes or no constitutes legal advice. I know a lot of people that don't get married without it. I know a lot of people that get it. It's very cheap. It sounds scary because everyone the terms are $1 million liability insurance, and people are like, "What? What's that? I don't want to spend $1 million on or like get insurance for $1 million for my event." You can get it through Event Helper. EventHelper.com is my personal favorite, but the cost, at least last I looked, it could change because of inflation, was 88 cents a guest. So if you have 100 guests, it's $88. So it is not expensive at all. And it's a really good little CYA should anything pop up. You can also go through your home insurance or renter's insurance. Sometimes they have event insurance that you can get through them as well. So check that out if you're interested. EventHelper.com is my personal favorite. And they make it really easy. And you don't even need to get that until like a couple weeks before your wedding. Because if you're doing it based on your guest list, then obviously you need to know how many people are attending before you purchase. Unless you're like, you know what, I don't care. I'll pay for 150 people. Even if we're not getting 150 people, then you can buy it earlier. But if you want to make sure that you're getting a little bit more accurate, saving some cash, I would go that route. How do you run a rehearsal that can't take place at the venue? Who should lead it in place of the venue coordinator? You can do it in a parking lot, which sounds very silly, but we've done it before. Honestly, it's just a matter of communicating a handful of things. And there is a whole section on how to run your own rehearsal in the master plan. That's where you're going to find all of the best details on that. Here's what you need to communicate. Pacing with walking, spacing for where they stand, and what do they do with their hands? That's the big thing. How far apart are they walking? Is anyone cueing them? Or they're just kind of like figuring it out on their own? Or once the person in front of them gets to the back of the chairs, like the back of the back row of chairs, then the next group goes, that kind of thing. So figure out the pacing of people walking down the aisle and recessing back down the aisle. And then also how far apart do people need to stand? And then what do they do with their hands and what do they do with their feet? I also like to remind people that they're on camera the whole time. And RBF is real and it ruins photos. So encouraging people to smile, not having things in their front pockets. Sometimes guys will put sunglasses inside their suit pockets and they'll get this like weird pucker. I don't know why they don't realize that like it's like a thing. So, and who should run it in place of the venue coordinator? Honestly, I mean, if it were me and I was the bride in this situation, I mean, I ran my own rehearsal. I knew the information. And for you, you've watched the rehearsal video, so you know how to do this. You can be the person to run it. If that stresses you out and you're like, heck no, okay, well then maybe you can show someone the rehearsal video in the master plan and have them run it for you. That could be a great idea. And that could be a parent. That could be a talkative bridesmaid, someone who can really project their voice. You could pick. How early can you give bridesmaids their gifts? Planning on robes or PJs, personalized hangers, then possibly some jewelry and or hard decor they can choose to wear for the wedding. What is hard decor? But feel that the rehearsal is cutting it too close. You can do it at bachelorette if you'd like, because usually that's a handful of weeks before the event. That would be a really good call if there's jewelry that you actually want them to wear on the wedding day. Robes and PJs, you can give it to them at the rehearsal. It just depends on what you're giving them. If you're giving them jewelry, I don't think the rehearsal's too late, to be totally honest. I don't think it's too late for any of this. If you would like, you could just say, hey, I'm going to be giving you things to wear while we're getting ready, so don't stress about it. And or, hey, I'm giving you the jewelry that you're going to wear on your wedding day, so don't worry about it. Or that you're going to wear on my wedding day, so don't worry about it. And then just give it to them at the rehearsal. So then you lessen the likelihood of people losing it. You tell I have 4 children. But if you don't want to do it at the rehearsal, you can always do it at the bachelorette or earlier. It's up to you. All right. I am a DIY bride because I love crafting and I love decor. Do you love hard decor? What is the best way to organize everything for my day of coordinator? She said she can take care of the decor morning of. My venue is allowing me to come in for 2 hours the day before to set up. However, I have a lot of decor, so my coordinator will likely have to finish where I leave off. Do I make a spreadsheet, take pictures, make a floor plan? I don't want her to think I'm too controlling or crazy. I just want to be helpful. Tara, you're so cute. Okay, I do have 2 things for you if you wanted to follow up on previous content I've already created. 1, there's a video on how to organize your wedding decor. 10 out of 10 recommend. And then 2, there is this download for DIY items checklist that I would recommend taking a look at. Maybe go ahead and pull it up on my end. Rebecca is going to toss this into the chat if you guys want to pull it up and take a look at yourselves. It's literally just a single sheet, things you might possibly be bringing as a DIY. You can use this as the sheet that you refer to. But DIY doesn't necessarily mean things I created from scratch. It's things that you are bringing to the venue that no professional vendor is handling for you. So it could be signs that you had professionally done or that you got printed at Kinko's. You might not have made them yourself, but this would still fall under the DIY checklist idea. So for ceremony, we've got signage, florals for your ceremony, any sort of large decor like an arch or an altar, any sort of stationery, could be programs on the seats, your unity portion, so candles, physically tying the knot, communion, planting a tree. And then there's also the section for cocktail hour, signs, florals, decor. This is typically card box, votives, guest book, and pens. Reception, again, signs, whatever you're gonna have on your tabletops. Centerpiece, table numbers, votives, china, glassware, flatware, napkins, favors, large decor, anything that you have behind your sweetheart table or on it, and then stationery, menu, and or escort cards. And then lastly, miscellaneous, like this, we'll see a little bit of crossover from the most commonly forgotten, right? Cake cutting stuff, and then photo booth stuff. So back to your question, because you said you have a lot of decor, because this doesn't really answer your question, but I just want to make sure that that resource is available for those that are like, wait, I'm starting to get a little inclined for what this looks like. So Tara, if I was you, I would honestly, I don't think it's a bad idea to make a floor plan. I don't think it's a bad idea to make a floor plan and make a list of items and their locations that you want them to go. I did this for my wedding. I had a full-on legend. I would like A, and then A was, backdrop for ceremony. B was the string lights. And so I broke it down like that, and it made it really, really easy for our setup crew to take care of it. Now, I was like you, and I had a lot of decor, so it still took them hours, but it really broke it down to the point that the groomsmen did it, and they did a fantastic job because I took all of the guesswork out of it. Right now, you're working with a professional, so you don't have to worry about that as much unless you're really specific about your vision. So here's what I would do. Make a list of all the items that you're taking, okay? Just a master list. Make a floor, and this is only for people who want to go on all out. So if you're hearing this and you're like, oh, shoot, I have to do all that. No, if you trust your coordinator to get this handled for you, you don't have to go this detailed. You can just go based off the video that we shared in the chat and keep it a little bit more low key. But if you have a master list, a layout, and then mark where things go on the overhead layout, that'd be fantastic. And then on the boxes, mark what's in the box and where they're going. So everything kind of tends to come together really nicely. I like the idea of taking pictures if you would like to, or if your centerpieces look different, or even if they all look the same. Set it up and take a photo of it and slap it on the outside of the box. That's also included on the How to Organize Your Wedding Decor video if you want to take a look at that. But that way, even those who are not design inclined can take a look at that and go, I can copy that. I can do that. So if you are concerned about it, those would be the steps that I would take to make sure that especially if you have a lot of it, that your decor is utilized properly, because you spend a lot of time working on this. I want to make sure that people actually get to enjoy it, and so do you. And Tara, I don't think that she's going to think you're too controlling or too crazy. I think that's extremely helpful. I would rather be over-informed than under-informed in a situation like that. And then I can scan through that and be like, I got it. I see the vision. I know exactly what I need to do. Especially if you communicate, hey, I just did this to be helpful. I'm not married to each and every single one of these, or here are the 3 that are the most important to me. But like, obviously, if you could just wrap this stuff up, whatever that happens to be. I think your plan is actually really sweet. So I wouldn't stress about stressing her out. I think this is really helpful. I was just wondering if a 2-hour cocktail hour is too long. Our ceremony is from 2 to 2:30. Then we are doing a receiving line, greeting guests until 3. Cocktail hour is 3:30 to 5:30. We want to make sure to have enough time for pictures, and I'm a type 1 diabetic, so we needed to put in some extra time in case I have medical problems that make photos take longer. Some of our guests will also need to check into their hotel at that time. They can also go to the venue and have snacks, drinks, and play yard games. I'm just second guessing it, and I'm worried 2 hours is too long. I mean, yes, 2 hours is a little bit longer. Like it's a lot longer. There's no ways around that. However, if you provide some sort of explanation or like put it out there through some sort of phone tree to be like, hey, FYI, as long as there is enough food and enough drinks, you probably won't run into any sort of huge issues, as long as the temperature isn't too bad. And if guests need to check into their hotels, that's great. In fact, I would maybe have your officiant or your celebrant make that announcement at the end of your ceremony to be like, hey, those of you who need to go check into your hotels, please feel free to do so. We've extended the cocktail hour on purpose to accommodate those that need to take care of that. So then it's kind of like a subtle way. I'm literally inventing this on the fly. It's a subtle way of letting all of your guests know, hey, this is going to be a little bit longer. And then as long as there's enough food and then there's enough drinks, I think they'll be totally fine. I don't think it's the end of the world. In an ideal situation, I would not plan a 2-hour cocktail hour personally. However, we've done plenty of ceremonies where it's like Greek Orthodox or Catholic that they have to have their ceremony earlier in the day. They don't have a choice because of how it lands through the church. And then they have really, really long gaps before they can even start their cocktail hour. If you decide that you want to do like any sort of Mad Libs or any sort of scavenger hunts, that's also another really fun thing that people can do while they wait. And it's a really easy add-on that you can just get printed up and have available for people to do. So for those who can't do yard games, because that only serves so many people at once, everyone can participate in the Mad Libs or the scavenger hunt. All right. Oh, good. I see some more questions popping up in the chat. Keep it coming. We have 12 bridesmaids and 11 groomsmen in our wedding party. Many people in our wedding are married / engaged / dating couples. I know that I compare the bridesmaids and groomsmen together that are couples, but what about the maid of honor, the best man? Man, why did I add a D on the end of that? Best man. Oh, we have my sister who's the maid of honor, but the best man is my fiance's brother. Do they have to walk down together, or can they walk down with their significant other who is also part of the bridal party? You could do whatever you want. And honestly, no one's really going to care. And I feel like the couple tends to hyperfixate on who people walk down with more than the people who are even walking down. You don't have to pair them up. You don't have to pair them up at all. If you want, some people arrange wedding party by height. So you have maybe tallest next to you, you can have shortest next to you. So that can hurt some feelings though. So what we tend to recommend is have the order at the top of the ceremony be the people who've known you the longest stand closest, and the people who haven't known you the longest stand furthest. And it's just a really clean way of like, you can't help when you met people, right? So you met someone, 6 months ago and you became like this, that's totally cool. But obviously your sister's going to stand a lot closer to you than that person is, right? So if you really want everyone to walk together, you can, and that can just be how people are standing when they get to the top of the aisle. I don't recommend letting people switch around or having them move once they get there. It's just kind of chaotic and it's a little messy visually. I wouldn't worry about having your maid of honor and best man walk with their partners unless you're like, you really, really, really want to. It would be cleaner if you didn't. However, if you're like, you know what, I just want them to, I want everyone to be comfortable with it, I don't want to have to worry about it, then I would have them walk down with their significant other, and then the wedding party just leave gaps for where the significant other will end up, if that makes sense. So typically it's the best man and the maid of honor that come last, closest to the couple. So if you really want them to walk with partners, then just have the wedding party leave spaces for them once they get in there. That's what we have for today's video, folks. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said earlier, that was only 20 minutes of the hour-long phone call. Can you imagine how much more value is packed into the other 2/3 of the video that you didn't even get a chance to see? You should come join me in the master plan. I'm telling you, I can make this wedding planning process super simple for you, unless you like to be stressed out. And then by all means, carry on, friend. If you haven't done so already, jump on down there, hit that like button if you like the video, and subscribe to this channel for more tips and tricks for the modern day bride. Come join me in the master plan if you want to be stress-free. And until next week, bye guys.